Family vacations really are the best, but they can be stressful when planning. Where should I go or where should I stay? Well, if you're hunting for an all-inclusive family-friendly option in Mexico, then I have the video for you. When researching family-friendly all-inclusive options in and around Cancun, two resort options come up frequently: the Hyatt Ziva and Finest Playa Mujeres. But which one should you choose for your all-inclusive family vacation in Mexico? The Ziva or Finest? Well, I hate to say this as it sounds like a cop-out, but it really does depend on your personal preferences. However, I will tell you how I feel they compare after having visited both. They are frankly pretty similar, and each one stands out for different reasons. So I hope this information can better inform your decision-making and trip planning in the future. Hey everyone, my name is Ben and welcome back to Explore Informed, where we dig into the details of travel so that the next time you go exploring, you can go a little bit better informed. If you like this content and want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button down below over here. I'm going to be honest with you for just a moment. I am trying to grow my subscriber count from what I would describe as very measly to slightly less measly, and every single subscriber helps. And if you do subscribe or you're an existing subscriber already, first off, thank you. I honestly mean that. And two, feel free to hit the bell icon down over here as well if you want to be notified of future uploads. So that is enough shameless pleading on my part. Let's talk about the Hyatt Ziva and the Finest Playa Mujeres. Now, I figured it would be good to first qualify myself just a little bit. I am a husband and the father of 2 young children, so I tend to think that my opinions about family vacations are moderately well informed. I'm not a single, childless man trying to talk to you about all-inclusive family vacations. No offense to those guys. I just want you to know that I do have some experience in that area. So let's start with an overview of the Ziva and Finest. The Hyatt Ziva sits 14 miles from the Cancun airport at the north end of Cancun's hotel zone in a somewhat premium location that I would best describe as a peninsula, which means that the Ziva has 2 different ocean views and 2 different beaches. As the name suggests, the Ziva is part of the Hyatt chain, with the Ziva being Hyatt's family-friendly all-inclusive brand and the Zilara being Hyatt's adult-only all-inclusive brand. Now, of note, this particular property that is now the Hyatt Ziva was once a Dreams Cancun in a previous life, and Hyatt conducted a huge renovation before the property opened as a Hyatt in 2016. Hyatt's Ziva and Zilara properties are actually owned and managed by Playa Hotels and Resorts, under the Hyatt flag. By my count, Playa operates 20 different resorts in Mexico, Jamaica, and the Dominican Republic, including several under the Hilton flag. The Hyatt Ziva offers 547 rooms spread across a few different towers, and operates both a club tower and an adults-only tower, the latter of which is branded as a resort within a resort called the Hyatt Ziva Turquoise. Now, by comparison, the Finest Playa Mujeres sits 18 miles from the airport, just a few minutes north of downtown Cancun, where the island Isla Mujeres sits just a few miles off the beach. The property was built from the ground up for Finest and opened in 2015, boasting 450 rooms across 3 different categories: the Finest Club, the Excellence Club, and then just your regular standard accommodations. The Finest Club represents the family-friendly club level, while the Excellence Club is the adults-only club level. The Finest resorts are part of the Excellence Collection, along with the Excellence Resorts and the Beloved or Beloved hotels. Like Playa Hotels and Resorts, the Excellence Collection operates all-inclusive properties in Mexico, Jamaica, and the DR. Now, before we talk about what's different between the Ziva and the Finest, let's talk about what is the same kind of at the 30,000 foot level. Both resorts offer many of the same features and amenities. All-inclusive dining and drinks spread across a number of different types of restaurants and bars. They both have club-level rooms and adult-only areas, though both properties are largely geared towards families. They each have kids clubs and kids pools with activities running throughout the day and shows in the evenings. On paper, they don't feel that much different because they really aren't that different. I believe they both target the same type of customer: families looking for kind of a middle to upmarket all-inclusive with more features and amenities, as well as a higher level of service than you might find in your ordinary average all-inclusive in Cancun. Both properties also have adult-only sister properties nearby. The Hyatt Zilara is right down the road in Cancun's hotel zone, and the Excellence Playa Mujeres, sister to Finest, sits right next door to the Finest. Now, one note, if you're not familiar with all-inclusive properties in Mexico, when I say adults only, I don't mean there's a bunch of like naked people running around. Okay, that term has many different connotations in the US, and unfortunately most of them are negative. In this case, it simply means no children are allowed, which is very common in this market. So what are the actual differences between the Ziva and the Finest? Let's start by talking about the physical properties themselves. At a glance, they look and feel pretty different. The Hyatt is located in the dense hotel zone and therefore is a little more kind of compact, with basically tall room towers separating the different pools and public areas. The Finest is quite the opposite. No tower on the property goes over 5 or 6 stories, and the pools and public spaces are far more spread out, with lots of greenery between. There's frankly not a lot of green within the interior of the Hyatt. You have to kind of walk around the perimeter of the resort to find anything remotely green. That combined with the tall towers and more compact feel, I get the occasional shopping mall vibe if I am being honest. So I prefer the actual layout of the Finest property over that of the Hyatt. Also, despite their fairly similar room counts, the Finest feels much smaller and much more intimate. I actually expected the room count at the Finest to be much lower than 450, or at least I expected it to be much smaller than the Hyatt is. I think that again speaks to the layout and design of the Finest property, as again things are well laid out. Also, because the Hyatt is located within the hotel zone, you can easily walk down the street to different shops, bars, clubs, and groceries. You're not going anywhere at Finest without a car of some sort, as it is outside of town and is only neighbored by other resorts and a marina. Isla Mujeres is nearby at least, but you'll need to hop the ferry unless you manage to fit your helicopter into your carry-on luggage. So if you really love shopping for doodads and things, you'll prefer the location of the Ziva over the Finest. The design and decor of both properties is meant to be contemporary, clean, and modern, though I think I prefer the Hyatt's design choices, even though I just compared it to a shopping mall. The Hyatt admittedly feels a little bit more safe and uses a lot of stone and kind of neutral colors. The Finest is certainly nice as well, but it comes off a little too minimal for my taste and reminds me too much of IKEA. There's a lot of white and natural wood colors. With that said, I think Finest has a big leg up over Hyatt in terms of the actual rooms and accommodations. Finest has a far more interesting selection of room choices. They have much bigger rooms and have a much higher percentage of premium rooms. So for example, Hyatt's base rooms are around 460 to 480 square feet, while Finest claims 800 square feet, though I suspect some of that is the balcony. I do believe though that Finest rooms are generally much larger than the Ziva. Again, Hyatt renovated an existing property in the dense hotel zone, while Finest kind of custom built their own property outside of town. Space is just much harder to get in the hotel zone. And because Hyatt's base rooms are pretty tight, I don't plan on booking just one ever again for my family of 4, if I can help it at least. Next time I stay there, I plan to target a suite or book 2 rooms. So back to some of the facts and figures, 324 of Hyatt's 547 rooms are just the same room with a different view or location within a club tower. 272 of Finest's 450 rooms are the same room type as well, with a view of either the pool, the beach, or the spa. I'm not sure how the spa is a view, but it is what it is. Hyatt has 25 swim-up rooms, while Finest has 60 swim-up rooms, 61 rooms with a rooftop plunge pool, granted it is a very small and shallow plunge pool, and 30 rooms with a private 10 by 14 foot pool. Now these are definitely not infinity edge pools with $1 million views, but they are still neat, unique features. Hyatt's adult-only turquoise tower features 152 rooms with a private hot tub on your balcony, which is nice. Finest has a slightly similar feature as they have a huge, and I mean huge, oversized jacuzzi tub near the balcony or terrace of I think every single room on the property. Finest also has 27 dedicated family rooms with a completely separate bedroom for children with 2 small twin beds. That is a very valuable inclusion if you have young children who need total silence or total darkness, or the opposite, or you have kids who grind their teeth like one of mine, and I could think of frankly a million other reasons. So Finest to me has a far more appealing room variety and has more truly premium room types. However, if you do want a more traditional kind of multi-room suite like you might find in an ordinary hotel, your best option is probably the Hyatt. That is one area with regards to accommodations where I think Hyatt outshines Finest. They have 20 plus suites of that type according to my research. Now let's talk about food and dining, one of the most important parts of an all-inclusive resort. Both Finest Playa Mujeres and the Hyatt Ziva have a myriad of dining options. Finest claims to have 11 different dining options, as well as 1 buffet, 1 beachside snack grill, and 1 food truck, alongside 17 different bars, which sounds like a lot. Ziva claims to have 17 different restaurants, bars, and lounges. Both resorts have the same staples: a big buffet available for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, a steakhouse, an Italian offering, a teppanyaki experience, a Mexican option, a fancy French spot, as well as casual cafes. coffee and dessert shops, and a beachside food shack. Finest may have a few more restaurants in number, for example, as they have a real restaurant in the Excellence Club, which is called Domo, and it's actually pretty good. My wife and I had a meal there on our most recent visit, and it was really great. So on paper, the food options look pretty comparable. There are some differences, though, in execution, at least in my opinion. Now, food is a topic of much debate and preferences vary widely, but I think the quality of the food offerings at Finest exceeds that of Hyatt. I think the buffets and casual options are pretty evenly matched, but I think Finest outshines Ziva when it comes to lunch and dinner at the various specialty restaurants. My wife and I had several meals at Finest that were much better, in my opinion, than anything we had at Ziva. At Domo and Brass, the steakhouse, for example. I don't really know how to explain it, but sometimes I feel like there's something lost in translation when all-inclusive resorts try to replicate a number of different kind of culinary styles on a large resort property. For example, if you order a New York strip at a steakhouse in an all-inclusive Mexican resort, the cut of meat may not always come out exactly like you might expect or like you might find here in the US, and that is kind of understandable. It's just not quite the same. Both Hyatt and Finest make a pretty good effort, but one reason I preferred Finest is I feel like they do a better job of this. I found their dining options were more refined and sophisticated, and Finest is frankly better at executing the vision of each of their various restaurant concepts. I've also felt like occasionally that the Ziva focused mainly on main courses and kind of ignored the appetizers, sides, and kind of the ancillary offerings. That is not the case in my opinion at Finest. I had a few very memorable appetizers and sides, like the bacon muffins, for example, at Finest. And that is something I didn't necessarily expect to say. So if you're a foodie or you put food high on your priority list, I would recommend the Finest first. But, please don't go in there expecting the same foodie experiences you enjoy here in the US. As a word of warning, these are still all-inclusive kind of touristy resorts. If you want a great food vacation in Mexico, I hear the place to visit isn't the beach, it's Mexico City. And if you're a true foodie, you should already know that. Now, there are a few things I think Hyatt does better in the food department. I think the coffee shop at the Ziva is far better than Finest, as is the dessert shop. That dessert shop is a place to behold and is basically heaven to children. I also really like Habaneros, the beachside taco shop at the Ziva. We've been repeat visitors there on both of our trips to the Ziva, and Habaneros blows away the beachside offering at Finest. In terms of the beverage and alcohol options, I think things are a little more evenly matched. They both have a ton of juice options and smoothies in the buffets, fun drink menus at the pool and the swim-up bars, domestic and import beers, various house wines, and importantly, many different tequila options. I don't have quantitative data to really back this up, but I would say that the Hyatt maybe has slightly more premium options in the liquor department. For example, at Juana Margarita, the Ziva Tequila Bar. Now, this is just frankly, though, my suspicion. I could certainly be wrong. And I would not suggest making a buying decision on this factor alone. Finest does still have top shelf options, as does the Hyatt, but your best bet to find those at Finest may be in the Excellence Club bar. Also at Finest, we were presented with a wine list at dinners. It had many different wines available by glass and bottle, but none of it was included in the all-inclusive package. However, if you simply asked for the house wine options, there were a variety of options available. Now, I know that's kind of a nitty observation, but I think all-inclusive properties should first clearly present you with the all-inclusive options, and then let you know about additional premium beverages and food options available for an upcharge. The all-inclusive options shouldn't be disguised in any way. So that was food and beverages, but what about the pools and beaches? The pool areas at the Hyatt and Finest are both great, but they are different. Hyatt will appeal to some, while Finest will appeal to others. Hyatt has two main pool areas, one on kind of each side of the property, just shy of the beach on each side. As I mentioned, they have two different ocean views and two different beaches. The pools are big and nice, are surrounded by loungers as you would expect. And there are also one or two pools that are only accessible through the turquoise adult-only area as well. But generally, I think people congregate around one or two of the main pools. Oh, and I forgot to mention that the Ziva has dolphins. Yes, dolphins in kind of a pen or a cage type thing. And their pen sits kind of right near one of the main pools, which makes for some good entertainment as you kind of come and go from that area. You can also swim with the dolphins if you want to pay up, but if I'm being honest, I kind of feel bad for the dolphins. Anyways, back to the pools. As I mentioned, Finest has a bunch of swim-up rooms, and therefore a lot of guests kind of swim outside their room or in a smaller pool closest to their room tower. There is still a central pool area with two swim-up bars, and that pool area is divided into a family area and an adults-only area. But the pool areas have a slightly different feel at Finest, because generally the guests, again, are kind of more spread out through the resort. So if you like big, traditional resort-style pools, you may prefer the Hyatt, but if you want something potentially quieter, book a swim-up room at the Finest. I personally lean, I think, towards the Finest. In terms of a few unique observations about pools, the swim-up rooms at the Ziva look pretty cool, and I believe many or all are ocean-facing and just steps from the ocean. However, there are not a ton of them as mentioned, and two, they're not really near the beach. They're near the ocean, but they sit up kind of on a cliff or a bluff. So don't expect to walk 20 feet from your swim-up pool into the ocean. Now, I think the main pools at the Ziva are more kid-friendly. One pool has a big, very shallow shelf with really good sun protection that basically becomes a go-to for young children and toddlers. I don't know exactly who has more heated pools, but that is actually an important consideration. We visited the Ziva once in January and we found ourselves only swimming in the heated pools, so that might be something to keep in mind if you're traveling there in the winter. In terms of the beaches, the Hyatt is located in the hotel zone and again has two different beach exposures because of how it's positioned kind of on that peninsula. That is a pretty unique feature that you really will not find anywhere else. The beaches also have two different kinds of moods. One is easily swimmable and the other is not really that swimmable. But neither beach at the Ziva is really the perfect combination in my opinion. Again, one is more friendly to swimmers with smaller surf, but it isn't quite as good for lounging and feels kind of cramped to me. And the beach on the hotel zone side is much better for lounging, but the beach chairs set up by the hotel staff are a long walk from the water. Again, largely because of the large lot that the Ziva occupies. Also a fairly nitty observation, but I didn't find the sand on that side to be particularly nice. I'm not sure what that means or says about me, but that's how I feel. The Finest beach, on the other hand, is much more relaxing, or at least was in my experience. It has multiple sections, one for the Finest Club, one for the Excellence Club, and one for the rest of the rooms. And there's an abundance of chairs and daybeds. Well, sort of. There is some confusion occasionally on who gets to use a daybed. The resort will say and tell you that everything is first come, first serve. But in my observation, it's more like first come, first serve at the discretion of the beach staff and attendants. But that issue aside, I think the Finest beach is a better fit for spending some serious time on the beach. There's both food and drink service on the beach at your lounger of choice. Granted, it's not super fast, but all the necessary components are there to basically lay down in the sun or the shade and never really get back up, if that is your kind of thing. There are jet skis available for rent, parasailing is available right off the beach, and there is little to no surf while I was there. So if relaxing on the beach all day is the number one goal of your vacation, I would lean towards the Finest. Now let's talk about childcare. If you're going on an all-inclusive family vacation, then childcare and kids activities are probably near the top of your list, maybe at the top of your list. First, I will tell you what they both offer similarly, and then I'm going to mention what sets one of these two apart, at least in my opinion. Both the Hyatt and the Finest offer a kids club of sorts where you can basically drop your child off or join them in activities led by the dedicated kids club staff. Both Ziva and Finest offer dedicated children's pool areas with slides, fun water features, etc. Also, many of the scheduled activities occurring throughout the day at both resorts are kid-friendly. However, there are three things that the Finest does that I believe set them apart. One, you can drop your children off at the Finest Kids Club and walk away at no charge. On both visits to the Ziva, we were never able to drop our kids off at the kids club. We had to stay with them for the duration they were there. But at Finest, you can drop off potty-trained kids, I believe at 3 years or older. The Finest Kids Club also has pretty wide-ranging hours from 8 or 9 a.m. to 8 or 9 p.m. Now, I'm not positive all those hours are available for the kind of drop-and-run feature, but I think that's still a pretty nice feature. Number two, Finest probably has 4 or 5 times more physical space dedicated to children than does the Hyatt, both indoors and outdoors. They have multiple kids clubs rooms for the different age groups. They also have 2 separate kids pools inside the kids club, one for the younger kids and one for the older kids. Both have slides and lots of fun features. And 3, Finest offers what they call the Imagine Lounge, which is basically a miniature kids club positioned in close proximity to all of the desirable restaurants. There is one lounge, I think, upstairs and one downstairs. And parents can drop their kids off there for up to 90 minutes as they dine next door in relative peace and quiet. This is of course included at no additional charge. Again, this is for potty-trained kids 3 and up I think, but this is a pretty cool feature. You can, for example, feed your kids at the buffet, then drop them off at the Imagine Lounge, and then have all your dinners alone with your spouse or partner, unless of course you opt for a family meal. I think this is available for breakfast as well, so breakfast and dinner. Again, I know everyone has different opinions on childcare. It's certainly a sensitive topic, and some people may prefer the Ziva over the Finest. But I think the intention is clear from the Finest. They want to be a family-friendly resort. So if that is the highest priority on your list, I would lean towards the Finest. The on-property activities and entertainment are both pretty evenly matched. Both resorts offer scheduled activities throughout the day, from sports to games to crafts. Many or all activities, again, are kid-friendly as mentioned, and both resorts have evening shows and entertainment. I personally prefer, though, the Hyatt shows, and I also much prefer the Hyatt venue, as the show takes place on a stage of sorts kind of right in front of the pool and the beach. Now, we've talked about the physical properties, location, pools, beaches, dining, beverages, childcare, but there are a couple intangible things or additional considerations that are worth mentioning. One big difference between the Ziva and the Finest is that the Ziva is flagged as a Hyatt. Being part of a global chain certainly has its pros and cons, but to me that is a big win for the Ziva because 1, I can earn Hyatt points for spend at the Ziva, and 2, redeem Hyatt points for free nights at the Ziva. Currently, Hyatt charges 25,000 points per night for 2 guests and charges an additional 12,500 points per additional guest per night. So free tip, if you have a family of 4, it's the same price to just get 2 rooms. Another thing worth mentioning, I also want to point out my biggest gripe at the Finest, and that was the music and noise at the pool. This was in large part due to weddings taking place at the resort most days we were there, because we were there over a weekend, which is great and exciting for those couples, but there were receptions in the Sky Bar near the pool until 11 p.m. or later, and the noise was really loud in my room. So if you don't like late night tunes streaming in your room, I would steer clear of the rooms by the pool at the Finest. And finally, before I close, I know I left out one obvious thing, and that is pricing. I went back and forth about whether I should include a pricing comparison, but I decided that I'd rather give you information about the features and amenities at each resort and then let you make a decision on the relative value. As I've said many times, only you get to decide how you spend your hard-earned time and money on your vacation, and the decision around value is yours and yours alone. My goal is simply to provide you with additional information to help inform those decisions. As a result, I hope you have found this video helpful. Let me know what you think about these properties by commenting down below, particularly if you have visited either one. As usual, you can find us on the social medias at ExploreInformed, and you can visit us on the internets at ExploreInformed.com. But thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time.